Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Good afternoon. This is Let the Record Show, formerly known as the Long Island Report. The name change, as I explained last week with Jesse to our audience, is we're doing so many international, national, state, and local issues, and we're not giving short shrift to Long Island, but the fact of the matter is the show is much broader in scope than just Long Island issues. And, of course, the issues we touch upon obviously touch upon the citizens of Long Island who are affected by these issues. Today, we're joined with Rita Cosby. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is Chairman Jesse Garcia, of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the State Republican Party and a County Chair of Suffolk County Party. Now, Rita Cosby. How do I begin to say how thrilled I am to have Rita Cosby hosting with Jesse and with me? Rita is an award-winning journalist. She's won 3 Emmy Awards. She's done radio. She's done television. She's done foreign assignments. She's been a foreign correspondent. She is a best-selling author of 2 major books. She's the co-host of Katz and Cosby on WABC with John Catsimatidis between 5 and 6 every night, Monday through Friday. And at 10, she comes on for a couple of hours every night on the Rita Cosby Show. So, figuring that she was underworked, I convinced her to be in the studio with me today to do Let the Record Show. So, Rita, welcome aboard. Jesse and I are delighted to have you here.
I am thrilled. And, Judge, I am the lucky one because I get to sit with you every day on Katz and Cosby, of course, 5 to 6. And I love Jesse, and I am always thrilled to be with... You can never say no to Judge Richard Weinberg. You know that, Jesse, right?
You cannot say no to the judge at all.
You're
welcome to be here.
So ordered. So, let's begin the discussion. Let's talk about the crime epidemic in America, which is something that obviously as a former prosecutor and a former judge, I'm very concerned about. And having lived through the bad old days in New York, I'm particularly concerned about it. And there was this movie that I was fortunate enough to participate in called Gotham, The Fall and Rise of New York, which talked about the resurrection of the city of New York, which is really a model to how we should be approaching this problem of lawlessness. And in my view, and then I'll turn it over to Rita for her comments and then to Jesse, in my view, we know what we have to do, but there's not the political will to do what's absolutely essential to save our cities. We are losing our cities. We're losing states. The country is in serious trouble. We have to wake up, confront the problem, acknowledge there's a problem, and then get to work to solving it. And it's not solved by having the mayor-elect of Chicago when there's urban riots by young kids in mobs, mugging people, robbing people, beating them up, assaulting them, stealing in stores by saying we're demonizing the young people and we shouldn't do that. That's a prescription for the destruction of the city of Chicago. Rita, what do you think?
You know, I absolutely agree. First of all, by the way, I want to be your agent because there's part 2 of Gotham, right, coming out?
I'm already working on that with the producers.
See, I get 10%. I'm going to start representing the judge because he's in more movies than anybody I know.
Well, Rita will give you a part in that as well, I promise.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I'll be the grip. It doesn't matter anything to be a part with the judge and obviously with Jesse too. You know, you talk about crime. First off, I am so passionate about what is happening in, of course, all of New York State, but it's happening in major cities across the country. It's happening, of course, in cities in Long Island. We see it everywhere. It is so troubling. First off, just on a personal note, as a woman, it is really troubling to walk the streets of New York these days. There are so many of these random crimes and random attacks that we are seeing left and right. I think it's scary to be on the subways. I didn't feel that way before. Now there are these random attacks. I mean, there was a female police officer. Here she was standing uniformed with other police officers the other day, and this guy comes over, clocks her on the head with a glass bottle. What a surprise, Judge. It turns out he's a repeat offender. He had 11 priors, and he went and attacked her. Thank goodness she is going to be okay. But then he also lunged for the other officers. What that symbolizes to me is that individuals are getting more and more brazen. They feel more emboldened. And much of it is, as you hit on so eloquently, Judge, it's the judicial system. Right now, there is this revolving door. I feel like police officers are under attack physically, verbally, so many ways. We've got to support our police. And then suddenly these people that they bust get back out on the streets and they get a slap on the wrist. And we're seeing now this political climate also so much where people are politicizing crime. We saw it with the recent hearings that took place with Alvin Bragg, on his judicial record, if you will, the Jim Jordan hearings. And there the Democrats came out and said, it's all a political stunt. Jim Jordan and his committee was saying, here are the facts. Here's what we're seeing. They had crime victims. It's sad it's become politicized. It needs to be a red, white, and blue issue. It shouldn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. We all need to be safe, Judge.
Well, I have to tell you, as a House Democrat, I'm embarrassed for the members of the Congress, the Democratic members of the Congress, who are apologists for the criminal class, who say that it was a political stunt. The record is the record. The facts are the fact. Let the record show. The name of this show, let the record show there's a crime epidemic in this city. It's not being confronted. We have a state legislature has not done the right thing. We have a governor who hasn't pushed the agenda to bring back law and order and public safety to the state. And this is a real problem. And as Michael Goodwin, in an excellent column in the New York Post, pointed out, Jesse and Rita, the fact of the matter is they should be ashamed of themselves for attacking the witnesses who said there's a crime problem, and they said, oh, no, you're just imagining it. It's not real. You're being used as political pawns by the Republicans and the pro-Trumpers. Jesse, what do you think?
I think that the problem is not so much that the judges, because their hands are tied, is that the state legislature, this woke left of center Democrat socialist mentality that's controlling Albany right now, has given us this cashless bail law that has tied the hands of cops, and really given a get-out-of-jail-free card to criminals. And they think it's okay. Now, as it pertains to the field hearing held by the Judiciary Committee of the House of Representatives, the people from all walks of life were telling their stories, their sad tales of being attacked, being hurt, being victimized by these criminals, and no one coming to their defense. But what about the stats? The Democrats want to say it's all a false narrative and it's not really happening, but here are the stats. New York City crime surges in the last 2 years, 2 years over change. Robbery up 43.9%. Felony assaults up 30.9%, and grand larceny 53.9%. This is not a false narrative or a political narrative. These are real people being really hurt, and there's no system in place to protect them any longer because of the acts of this legislature and this governor.
And you know what's interesting, Jesse, too? Here's another stat. 52% of Alvin Bragg's felonies reduced to misdemeanors. So they don't get a lesson. They don't understand what's going on. And you know, the other thing really raised my ire. You can tell I'm so passionate about this, guys. AOC coming out and basically angry at Eric Adams, the New York City mayor, for giving the police a long overdue raise. He gave them a 28% raise. They hadn't had one in a long time. And she says basically, how dare you? It's endangering public safety by helping the cops and keeping cops. Cops don't want to stay on the job. And then she also said, you are basically militarizing New York. How are we going to solve the crime problem if we don't back our police and if we don't have police on the streets?
First of all, no government has any moral authority to govern unless it protects its citizenry. It's as basic as that. The first obligation of government is to make sure that the city and the states and the nation are safe places where you can raise your families, go to work, go to school, be entertained, go on vacation, go for a walk, and not have to worry that somebody's going to hit you over the head or cut your throat for a couple of cents or throw you in front of a train. And this is serious stuff, and I don't know why you have to state the obvious that we need to take the cities and the states and our nation back. And part of the problem, by the way, Jesse, and you've pointed this out, the so-called bail reform law was no reform at all. It was a get-out-of-jail-free card. We are the only state in the entire country that doesn't allow judges to hold somebody in based on dangerousness. The federal system allows for it, and all the other states allow for it. Next, they put on a whole bunch of rules where certain crimes you can never set bail for. They were not so-called bail eligible. So you can't even get to that issue about whether you can set bail, because you can't, because they had a do not set bail list, which is a per se rule. You couldn't do that. Then they said, even with respect to those where you could set bail, the judge was obligated to have a hearing, but the least restrictive means to guarantee that the defendant came back for trial. So a judge now had to go through a whole exercise of having a whole hearing, waste all that judicial time and prosecutorial time and courtroom time to show it was the least restrictive means, which of course was subject to review by a higher court. Then they have the discovery rules. Discovery rules, we have to turn over an open file discovery in a very short period of time, which has led to charges not being rendered for judicial proceedings, but dismissed administratively. Or, as Rita correctly pointed out, to be reduced from felonies to misdemeanors. And what's going on in Albany right now is they're negotiating the budget, which is way late, by the way. What's the problem? Even the so-called attempt to change it by saying, well, there's certain crimes that you don't have to use the least restrictive means to bring somebody back, the least drastic means to bring somebody back. Every DA is the one who's in charge of the charging document. So, for example, if I get stabbed, instead of being attempted murder, which is a violent felony, they could say, well, there wasn't serious injury, therefore it's merely an assault. And if it's merely an assault, then it wouldn't be something we have to go to the exercise of least restrictive means. You have to understand they've given discretion to DAs to get rid of cases. They've given no discretion to judges to hold people in and protect the public. Rita.
Well, and you know what also, it also says to me as elections have consequences because many of the judges are elected. Most of them are obviously appointed. The DAs, as you know, are elected. And when Alvin Bragg came out, for example, in New York, he said, in fact, he did a debate at WABC. And I remember him saying, we're going to do big criminal justice reform. We're going to go light on this. I think many New Yorkers didn't believe him. But yet he got elected in, obviously Soros-backed money too as well. But look what we are seeing. And then now look at what the future is, too. We know also that the state Senate in New York confirmed Judge Rowan Wilson. He's going to be the next chief judge. He definitely seems to be softer in terms of going after criminal defendants than the other person that, of course, Hochul had tried originally to get, didn't go through. But we're seeing this pattern. And you brought up Chicago eloquently at the top there, Judge, too. Look at what happened in Chicago. Chicago had a choice. Chicago had Lori Lightfoot, who was trying to run again, who everybody thought was already way too soft on criminals. And as you brought up, even with the recent stuff, she said, what mayhem when we're all seeing the rioting and all the crime in the streets of Chicago. Well, guess what? She didn't make it to the runoff, and it ends up being two other people, Vallis and Johnson. Vallis, who was pro-police, again, a Democrat, but very much law and order guy. The other one, Johnson, who's to the left of Lori Lightfoot, basically makes Lori Lightfoot look like Steve Bannon, right? So guess what happens? He gets elected. And now we have seen crime already. He hasn't even been elected yet. He's been elected, but he's the mayor-elect, not seated yet. And he's already come out and essentially said, it's not constructive to go after teens. I pray for Chicago, but what are the people in Chicago thinking? I think this is a huge wake-up call to voters that when we go to the voting booth, we got to look at the history of who we're voting in and why, and take them to task and protest peacefully. Write letters, call your members of Congress if you're not happy with what you're seeing. But we need to speak out, and I think people listening to this need to know they can play a role, especially when they go into the voting booth, and don't just automatically pull a lever and then go, wait a minute, what happens?
Jesse, what do you think?
I completely agree with both of you. I mean, I can only imagine what's going to transpire in 2024 when the Democratic National Convention is being held in Chicago. I mean, it's
duck.
back to
Jesse, the word is duck. Duck.
Duck, cover, and Kevlar. That's what we're going to have to need out there, because we can't rest our faith in the government there or in woke Democratic-led cities or communities to protect us any longer. The facts are the facts. We can't allow this to run rampant, and it's unfortunate, but you got to wonder what is going on in the minds of, let's just take for a moment, the Chicago voters and the residents there. For 4 years, they lived under the highest murder rate in the country, highest shooting rates in the country, more black-on-black crimes than ever before, burglaries, and so on and so forth, violent crimes going on and on. And they still take another step back. You have to wonder what is wrong with the system, or what is wrong with the voter as they see the two choices they have here. I mean, here in New York, just last year, we had one of the closest gubernatorial elections in history. And Lee Zeldin, a great man, really, I bet there's buyer's remorse for those 4% of the people who did not vote for him right now, based on what's going on in the city and in the state throughout the state right now. But you have to wonder, what are they seeing that allows them to vote for the same failed policies and politicians and philosophy? I don't get it.
Nor do I. Rita, last comment for this segment.
You know, I agree. And I do think there are people in New York that are having voters' remorse, just as you said. And I think Chicago, sadly, is going to have a lot of voters' remorse, which is really sad for what's ahead for the Windy City.
We'll be back in a moment. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Jesse and Rita and I will be discussing another major issue, which touches upon the massive document leak coming out of the Pentagon, what really happened there, why it's so dangerous, and the foreign policy failures of the Biden administration. This is Let the Record Show with our special guest, Rita Cosby, an award-winning journalist, author, foreign correspondent, and my heroine, and my good friend and esteemed colleague, Jesse Garcia, Vice Chair of the State Republican Party and Chair of the County Party out in Suffolk County. We'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned for the next segment of Let the Record Show.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
Campfire season's back, and that means s'mores. But when you're at home treating yourself, take them over ice with Dunkin' S'mores Cold Brew Concentrate. And suddenly you're always treating yourself. The home with Dunkin' is where you want to be. Click or tap the banner to shop now.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
This is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is my esteemed colleague and co-host, Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. And Jesse and I are honored and privileged indeed to have one of the best journalists in this country, 3-time Emmy-winning award, Rita Cosby, an author of bestsellers, TV, radio host. She's on every night between 5 and 6 on Katz and Cosby, where I have the privilege and pleasure of sitting in and being the visiting co-host who's on every night, some visit.
You are a permanent visitor, and we love it. And we love it.
And then when she puts in that segment, and she then goes on, does a 2-hour show, the Rita Cosby Show, between 10 and 12 every night as well. So I drafted Rita to come down into the studio because I didn't think she was working hard enough. And because of that, I'm going to ask you the next question. Next question has to do with what I consider a great calamity and a metaphor for what's going wrong with this country. And I'm talking, Rita and Jesse, about this horrible, horrible leak of the documents out of the Pentagon. I think this country's in serious trouble. As Jesse and I have talked about week after week, we're under attack from the inside, from the outside. A weakened inside nation is susceptible to attacks by the outside. There's an axis of evil operating against us, Rita and Jesse, which I'm very concerned about. Right now, China is eating our lunch. They're emboldened. Taiwan may be next. They fly balloons over and they spy on us. Now it turns out, I saw recently that and that's one of the good things that came out with this leak, even though I'm not in favor of leaks. Turned out there were at least 4 other balloons that were doing surveillance against us. So, Rita, your turn. What do you think about all this?
Well, I think, first off, the leak was so incredibly troubling. And I also think it's a reflection of the fact that so many people don't respect the Biden administration. You talked about China. I think about Russia. And I think about Biden early on saying, oh, if it's a minor incursion, well, clearly Russia got a green light. China hasn't had any rebuke from this administration. They didn't do anything. In fact, the first spy balloon, they basically, as we know, let it traverse across the country, do figure eights over very sensitive U.S. military sites. And then after it collected all the intelligence for China, then suddenly they shoot it down when it went off Surfside Beach, South Carolina. So I think the message is sadly to the world that this is the time to take advantage of America. And you just see American weakness. Also this week, it came out a lot more details about COVID-19 pointing to a lab leak. Biden administration hasn't said anything to Xi Jinping, the leader of China, about that.
And we lost 1 million people in America.
In America alone, exactly, Judge. And then also Afghanistan. You think about the IG report talking about the billions of dollars of equipment left behind, the dismal withdrawal. Also, this was really powerful that came out this week. One of the inspectors general, this is an independent party, came out and said before Congress, U.S. taxpayers may be now funding the Taliban because we continue to send billions of dollars there. And of course, the Taliban controls, Afghanistan. So we have no control, I think, sadly, of foreign policy. And I think many people are just seeing incredible weakness by this president. And just, on a personal level, Judge, it breaks my heart. I love this country. My father was a prisoner of war. He was rescued by American troops. When my father saw young American troops on the other side of a riverbed, he was like, they told him he was free, literally. And my father said, I can't wait to come to this great country called America because they represent freedom around the world. They represent strength, that beacon on the hill that Reagan always talks about. And, sadly, I think many people are smelling weakness in this country, and it breaks my heart. It is the best country in the world. We need to stand strong, and we need to stand unified against our adversaries.
Jesse.
It is a metaphor, this leak, for what the American standing is in the global stage right now. It's also a metaphor of how weak this country has become, our nation, and that kills me. As I hear what you said about your father, and it was detailed in that amazing bestseller you wrote. But I also reflect upon my own father, who defected from Cuba to come here to, as Reagan described and you aptly put, the shining city on the hill. But now I believe it's also a metaphor of ineptness and incompetence of a government. This government can't do anything right. It cannot do anything right. And it demonstrates this. I can't wait to see where the investigation leads. We've arrested the perpetrator here, a 21-year-old National Guardsman, an airman first class from Massachusetts that was posting, 700,000 documents, videos, diplomatic cables online on Discord. I mean, for any reason, just for whatever the purposes are. But the result has been the embarrassment of America and the shining of a light of American tools and protocols in which we do our intelligence gathering. That's probably the most damaging. We know friends always look over each other's fences to see what's going on. Friends will spy on friends. We know what's going on there. We also, of course, spy on our enemies. But the fact that the ability and how how intelligence agencies from across the world can now put together how we go about our intelligence gathering.
Sources and methods.
Sources and methods. Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, Rita and I were privileged last week at Rita's invitation on Katz and Cosby. We had Colonel Tony Schaefer on, who now runs the London Center on Foreign Policy. And he said something that was very, very interesting. And I think it was the first time I had heard this. And we sat in the studio, and my eyes lit up, and I looked at Rita because she's very close with Colonel Schaefer. And he said, it's not just this 21-year-old kid. There are more people in this chain. Now it turns out that they're looking at a former naval officer, and how do we know that it ends there? There may be a multitude of people who are involved in this problem. Now, this is my problem with this whole issue, and then I want to get Rita's thoughts on this. I'm very happy to say that as a per se rule, I am against these kinds of leaks because I think they're damaging to this country. I don't think we should be making this kid a hero. I don't think we should make anybody who leaks a hero. There are processes to go through and legal protections if you're actually a legal whistleblower. So if you want to be a whistleblower, then you go through the process to do it right. What you don't do, and you don't self-glorify and go through an ego trip by blasting out, as Jesse correctly puts out, hundreds of thousands of documents all across. You breach your obligations to this country. To me, this is treasonous. It's a violation of the Espionage Act. This kid is not a hero. This naval officer, if she's involved, is not a hero. If there are other people who are involved, they're not heroes. Stop glorifying these people based on whether they satisfy your political agenda or your ideological viewpoint. Stop the nonsense. A whistleblower has legal protections if they go through the process. This was not about being a whistleblower. Rita.
I agree with you. And I'll also just talk about firsthand experiences. As you were talking, Judge, it made me think of a moment when I was over in Afghanistan. At the time, I was with NBC News. And I flew into Bagram, and this was in 2005. We went to a forward operating base in the middle of no man's land, just so you understand how difficult it is to be literally with our U.S. troops. It was, foreboding territory, Taliban everywhere. It was a scary moment. And I remember I go in with the U.S. troops there, and I'm standing, and there was a group of Afghans standing to the side, kind of scruffy. They looked like they hadn't taken a shower in a long time. They weren't speaking English. Suddenly, one of them came behind me, and I remember I had a notepad, and I put the notepad, I had it in my hand. Suddenly, I heard perfect English behind my head. And it was one of the guys who was a scruffy guy. Now, the U.S. troops said to me, don't talk to any of those people. They don't talk to us. We don't talk to them. We don't know who they are, blah, blah, blah. One of them came behind me, literally perfect English, said to me, Rita Cosby, don't turn around. I'm a fan of yours from Fox News because I'd been at Fox News before NBC. Imagine this, who we thought was a scruffy Taliban maybe, or who knows who, right? An Afghan villager comes behind. He said, don't turn around. And he said, I just want to say to you, thank you for coming and covering us. Thank you for coming. The troops don't know I am here. I am undercover CIA. Please don't turn around. I turned up the notepad and started talking to him. I put the notepad in front of my face. And all I could say to him with tears in my eyes, thank you, because he was so deep undercover that clearly even the U.S. military didn't know that this CIA operative, who was a smelly, looked like an Afghan villager, was so deep undercover that he was infiltrating Taliban and others in Afghanistan. And I think of that moment all the time, Judge and Jesse, because to me, it epitomizes how tough and how risky the job is if you are one of those sources, one of those undercover sources. And what this guy did was expose people like that guy and others who potentially were putting their lives on the line for American troops and American freedom all over the world. And I agree, I don't think he's a hero. There are appropriate channels people can go through if you have a problem with what's going on in the processes. Go through Congress, go through other ways that are legal means. Don't put the lives of like heroic people like that man who I never saw his face. I heard his voice, and I could hear how proud he was to be an American. And we are lucky to have men and women like that, thousands of miles away, that now their lives are on the line. Because guess what? Those documents will not only expose a secret, but who maybe gave that secret. It might tip off an adversary, and we don't want to hurt those sources.
Right. I'm desperately afraid that people will lose their lives and their families will lose their lives because of this stunt by these irresponsible traitors to America.
And look what happened in Afghanistan, Judge, too. I mean, sadly, the Afghan withdrawal, which we also were talking about, that epitomizes, sadly, that we did leave allies behind. There are still people that are there with
We left
Taliban
Americans
hands.
behind, too.
Yes.
Our allies and Americans. Jesse, what do you think about the Afghan withdrawal?
It was an utter complete mess. It was a complete abandonment of a military power, military staging power. We cut and run. It was done in the wrong way. We took the military out first and then left everything else to basically fend for themselves. It was a clear demonstration again. I mean, an early sign of the ineptness of this administration that they did not know what it was doing. And now what we're dealing with is that this premier Air Force base, this technological marvel that the United States taxpayers paid for the war on terror, now is in the hands, in a partnership with Chinese intelligence and the Taliban. And now we know that the reverse engineering is going on with the weapons we left behind and the tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars of weapons and equipment we left behind there. And all that, in a partnership with China, is being reverse engineered, and that technology is going to be used against us.
And Admiral Kirby has the audacity to stand in front of the White House and say what a wonderful withdrawal it was and how well done it was. I mean, Rita, what do you say about that?
Yeah, that was just shameful. And I've known Kirby a long time because he's been with the Pentagon for a long time, even prior, of course, to moving over to the NSC there at the White House. And that was, I think, even he realized what a bunch of, I'll say it nicely, hogwash that was. That was just obscene. You know, the other thing I think about, too, is through all of this, President Biden doesn't seem that concerned. I mean, even when it comes to the Afghanistan withdrawal, he keeps saying, oh, yeah, we did a good job, basically, way to go. And which is, who would ever say that? All I could think about is the people clinging to the plane as the plane is taking off, those thousands begging for freedom. And then also even on, the issue of this guy, this 21-year-old National Guardsman, when he was asked over in Dublin, President Biden said, I'm not really concerned. We're going to kind of track it down. What message does that send? I mean, you have the president at the very top of the line, seems just very disconnected about national security, international security issues. You look at the border, seems very unconcerned about that. It's a very troubling time for America, and it concerns me as an American and as someone who loves this country, guys.
Well, our mutual friend, Eric Levine, who's often on the show with Jesse and me, just came out with another article, which I sent to you, Rita, and to you, Jesse.
By the way, don't we get the best articles from the judge, Jesse? Do you? Is he
Yes, we do.
He's the best. I love it.
Yes, I'm the official librarian of WABC.
You're hired.
But Eric traced this back. When you read this article, and next time we have him on, Jesse, we'll talk to him about this. But fundamentally, he's saying Biden is inept, and he's screwing things up royally. But it all began with Obama's apology tour, with his trying to make up for the so-called sins of America, when he's talking about soft power, leading from behind. All of this nonsense. America has to show leadership, because if America doesn't have leadership, the world order is threatened. When the world order is threatened, aggressive, hostile powers come to the fore. This axis of evil, which consists of Iran, Russia, North Korea, China. Now it's infiltrated into Latin America. Forget about the Monroe Doctrine. You have Brazil playing ball with the communist Chinese. You have Venezuela playing ball. You have Colombia. You have all these countries now playing ball. So how dangerous is it when you wake up day after day and you see another strategic maneuver against the United States of America and against Western civilization? I am deeply troubled. So, Rita, for the last comment of this segment before you have to go up and do some more with John Catsimatidis, what do you have to say?
It is troubling. And I also was thinking about, Judge, and something you and I were talking about on Katz and Cosby also, is Saudi and Hamas. I mean, these alliances that are being created around the world, and even discussion of the other currency. I mean, it is so troubling to me because America, as I brought up about my father, and as someone who I love this country, and this is something where, again, all parties should come together. We care about this country. We want it to be the best. And you're right. If America is not the leader, isn't showing strength, isn't showing courage, isn't standing up for what is right and standing against what is wrong, others follow that. And then it just makes it a rudderless, not only America, but a rudderless world. And I think about what has happened, even in just this brief time. And this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. This is an American issue. We're seeing now, of course, what's happening with Russia, Ukraine. We're seeing now China definitely doing, it looks like, a lot more than saber-rattling against Taiwan. We're seeing, again, as you brought up also, think about Erdogan, the head of Turkey, saying, hey, all Arab leaders, let's come together against Israel. Israel, our great ally. Israel, a great democracy there in the Middle East. These are things that are deeply concerning. And I am very concerned about something else that was said to us, Judge, on one of our shows that we do. I think it was Kellogg who had said this, General Keith Kellogg, who was the former National Security Advisor with then Vice President Pence and also worked with President Trump. He said that he feels China and other bad actors, like the ones we just talked about, a number of them will take advantage of this moment, that there is a narrow window, because with President Biden here, as we know, at least till this, this term, he hasn't fully announced if he's going to run or not yet. We don't know if he is, but he keeps saying he is. But if I'm a bad actor, they have a narrow window to act. And so he believes the next year and a half or so is going to be a very dangerous time, not just for America and the world. And I pray he is wrong, because, of course, I want America to win, and I want us to win big, because then the world wins big.
Well, Jesse and I would like to thank you, Rita, for being on the show. This has been instructive. It's been wonderful having you in the studio. It's an absolute delight. Your experience, your wisdom, your point of view, and your good humor, regardless of all the troubles that we have in this country and in this world, is very welcome indeed. This is Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia. Once again, we want to thank award-winning journalist and author Rita Cosby for being with us today. We will be taking a break, and we'll be coming back to our third segment of Let the Record Show. Stay tuned.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
We're shipping Mother's Day gifts with a rapid-fire round of questions. Ready?
Yes, my gift. Can you pack it?
Yep.
Ship it?
Yes.
Guarantee it?
Of course.
Oh, send gift baskets?
For sure.
Protect electronics? Dog-proof it? Return it if they hate it?
Yes, no, and yeah.
Are you the UPS store?
Hey, we have a winner!
Visit theupsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Visit a store today.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Oikos Remix varieties with epic mix-ins and 11 grams of complete protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See RemixYogurt.com.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the State Republican Party, as well as the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We just had award-winning journalist, author, Emmy winner, foreign correspondent Rita Cosby with us, the bulk of our show today. Jesse, wasn't Rita just wonderful?
Rita was amazing and so insightful. We have to have her back on. No wonder she's doing a show with Cats every night.
Well, the show was known originally, Jesse, as Cats at Night, and then we decided to bring Rita aboard. So the show now is is Katz and Cosby, and she's on every night, and I'm on. I have the privilege of being with them every night as well. She's just absolutely marvel. Her network of friends and contacts is enormous. She really is an award-winning journalist. She really is a foreign correspondent who's gone to some real danger war zones over the years. She's a great writer and probably one of the most lovely people you ever want to meet. And she just bubbles with energy and enthusiasm and good humor. So I'm delighted to have had her on the show with us. I think we were very lucky to have her. So, Jesse, I want to bring up my concern about the nationalization of the auto industry. My view about this is very simple. They have this EPA mandate, which I believe, by the way, should be challenged as unlawful, that they don't have the right to do this under EPA rules. If you're going to do this, you have to do it by legislative action. And even if you did it by legislative action, the idea that you're going to have state control of what kind of cars people can have, it's anti-capitalist, it's anti-freedom of choice. It's a bad idea because, as you and I have talked about, Jesse's, this whole issue of electric cars, they don't have the grid to do it. They don't have the energy sources to do it. Where are you going to charge your cars? They don't have enough for the charging stations. These are dangerous when you have fires and floods. When you have the fires, they spill out fumes that are toxic chemicals which can kill people. When there's a fire, you put the fire out, then there'll be a spontaneous generation of a second fire, even after it's put out. If the car is in an accident, it's a threat to the safety of the EMS workers trying to rescue. Cars that are in these automobile accidents and the electric generally are not replaceable. And the batteries, if you're going to replace them, are about $20,000 to put in. I just think it's the craziest idea in the world, and yet it's being imposed by the Biden administration through an EPA regulations, part of their woke green energy agenda, which is a terrible, terrible idea. And electric cars are more expensive for the average person. What say you?
Absolutely. You identified all that. And let's not forget, who are the ones that are going to be benefiting from this? More so, where do we get these batteries from? Traditionally, we need these batteries and the materials for these batteries from materials that are mined in China. Basically, China will once again be the major supply chain. So these rules and regulations, which you're right, should be legislative and not written on a piece of paper by a bureaucrat, will be enabling and emboldening another problem we have with a China supply chain. It's unfortunate that we move forward with this, but it's something that continues to happen. It happened under the Obama administration. It happens under the Biden administration. It happens under Democratic administrations. They first begin with what the political narrative they want to reach, and what's the political 30-second headline they want to go for, and then they back everything into there, and their policies are just wrong. These are just, the administration meeting with outside political special interest groups to meet their goals. And here's what it is. Who's going to suffer? The consumer's going to suffer because they're going to be paying higher cost for a product that does not have the national infrastructure to support. They're going to have higher costs with insurance. They're going to have higher costs with the fact that, as you said, once you get into a small little fender bender, this entire battery's got to be thrown out and we got to get a new one. This is also anti-capitalism. It's anti-choice. It's anti the consumer's drive of what they should buy, what they desire to buy, whether it be a hybrid car, a gas vehicle, or an electric vehicle. Now, under the Biden administration, this harkens back to the old Soviet Union, where they're telling the constituency what they're going to buy.
Only 19. That's right, Jesse. Only 19%. The latest polls show only 19% of the American population wants an electric car, and yet they're going to force it down our throats.
And if that 19% wants to purchase an electric car, they should have the ability to do that. If the balance of that, the 81% want to buy a combination of a hybrid vehicle or a fueled vehicle, they should be given that choice as well. We should not have government dictating to the consumer the only limited buying options that they have. And they're doing this, and it's unfortunate. I wish that, our corporations that are dealing with this, that the auto industry pushes back a bit. Fortunately, we have some red state attorney generals that are pushing back on rules and rattling their sabers and such, because they want to protect protect the choices of their consumers and not have to implement an agenda that has no infrastructure underneath it.
Well, that's a very good point. I spoke to two state attorneys general today, both of whom I'm friendly with and have enormous respect for. One is the Attorney General of Florida, Ashley Moody. The other was the Attorney General of Virginia, Attorney General Meares. And both of them are taking a very hard look at these EPA rules and seeing about bringing litigation against these EPA rules. But this is the question I can't get my head around, Jesse. It really troubles me. Why are the automakers folding so easily on this? Why are they not saying this is unworkable, it's undoable, it's not effective, it's totally contrary to our ability to be entrepreneurial and make the best judgments based on trial and error and ingenuity? Why are they allowing the government bureaucrats and the Biden White House to impose this, and they're not fighting back? I don't get it, Jesse. Do you?
I'm at a loss, too, with this. But the only thing I can understand is either one or the other. It's a carrot or a stick. As I said, when these rules are being promulgated, they're being promulgated outside with special interest groups and such. You got to think there's one or two things going on here. Either these automakers are being promised a series of tax benefits or
subsidies,
right? That was subsidies, exactly, sir, to do this. Maybe subsidies in the manufacturing of these vehicles and such, or the threat of using the power of the government to shut down and impose these rules on a corporation. It's like mostly things. What's going on now? In New York, we've just banned, not to go outside, but we just banned those high school team sport nicknames that would offend Indian citizens, natural
Native Americans,
indigenous Native Americans. Thank you. Right. And what's the there's no carrot, but there is a stick. If they don't comply with this law, they're going to lose state aid. There's something going on very similar here with this auto industry, because I cannot believe that these auto manufacturers that have millions of dollars of stakes, millions of dollars of investment in multiple manufacturers' facilities, whether they be EV, hybrid, or gas fueled, are capitulating so easily. So it's got to be one or the other. Either we're paying for it, one at a high cost, or these corporations in these auto industry is being threatened with even more regulations, even more enforcement of rules and such.
Well, Jesse, this is what I think the most important thing that came out of the conversation on this issue, and it's the point that you raised. Our dependency on China and Afghanistan, places that bear us no goodwill, control the natural resources, the minerals, to make the cobalt and the other the cobalt and the other minerals that are necessary to build them. The batteries are controlled. I think 80% of the batteries manufactured in the world are controlled by the Chinese. We're giving power to a country that is absolutely dedicated to the destruction of the United States as we know it today. They want to become the number one power in the world, and we're giving them the supply chain wholeheartedly and embracing it and saying, oh, this is the greatest idea since sliced bread. Go ahead. We'll rely on you because we can rely on your good faith to supply us with what we need. Are they kidding or they mean it? How naive could you be by giving your enemy the control of the sources of supply for your energy and for your vehicles? I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me at all. Kevin has given us a sign. We'll take a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. And I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll be back for a wrap-up segment in just a minute. Stay tuned.
Let the Record Show is on the air. This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. This is our final segment. Jesse, I want to begin this by talking about this attack on AM radios. Now, I think it's a very serious matter because, as anybody knows, in times of disaster, AM radios are the way to go in terms of the emergency broadcasting system. So why in the world we would be trying to undermine AM radio, I have no idea. And yet, this is exactly what both the federal government and car manufacturers are trying to do. They're trying to get rid of AM radios in cars. And it's a threat to the public safety. It's a threat to national security. It's a threat to our freedom of choice. And strangely and coincidentally, Jesse, AM radios are also a source of talk radio. And as you and I know, talk radio is often has a political and ideological perspective, which is different than the mainstream media. What do you say?
I completely agree with you. I mean, I grew up on AM radio, and many people have. You pointed it out. It's a consumer's choice. It's a choice of programming. It's also national security. It's also emergency services. I don't understand why this is moving forward as an option in any vehicle. I mean, unless there's, it's going to drive up our costs, because that means we're either going to have to buy the connections for our phones to go into our cars. We're going to have to buy a fee schedule. And besides, our ratings are pretty good. I think they're scared of our ratings, Your Honor. I think they're scared of our ratings. We may have to change the name again so they can't find us on what's going on. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what's going on here.
Well, what's interesting, and your point about national security and public safety, 7 former FEMA directors have said that this is the worst possible idea that they can do. The worst possible idea. And these are non-political, non-ideological people who are just saying in terms of national security and the ability for our citizens to communicate and to be safe, we have to have AM radios. I just want to wrap this up with the last piece of legislation. It's still being negotiated as we speak in the state budget, and this is the so-called good cause eviction proposal. Let me tell you what this is. It's another consumer fraud. It's another attack on property rights of owners. And fundamentally, Jesse, it's the imposition of statewide rent control laws in this deceptive package. If I'm a property owner, I own a building. If I want to rent to somebody or not rent to somebody, that's my choice. It's my property. I have the right to do that as long as I don't violate their civil rights. So I can't discriminate against them because of religion, race, national origin, sexual orientation. I can't do that, nor would I, nor would any reasonable owner of property do that. So you already have protections. So this is an unnecessary bill in terms of protecting. There already is a reason to say that people are protected as tenants. But what this is going to do is this is going to create a system of statewide rent control, which is going to tell you how much you can charge and when you can charge it. And statewide rent control, Jesse, in my opinion, and all the economic studies have shown, when you have rent control, you have fewer houses being built, fewer houses or apartment buildings being repaired or being maintained. People abandon it because they can't pay the cost of operating their insurance, their employees, their real property taxes. They walk away from buildings. So if you're thinking to get more housing for people when you have a housing issue, you're going to have less housing for people. Final word on this, Jesse.
It's absolutely right. We have enough laws on the books right now that ensures that people have affordable rental opportunities, affordable home opportunities, and that anybody can rent anywhere. There's enough rules here. I find it really ironic that every Democrat across this state was quiet on this in 2022. It was only until late in this budget cycle that it came up. And I think this is almost akin to the cashless bail reform. It comes out of nowhere. It hasn't been vetted. And the people, the consumers, and those people looking for strong, clean, safe housing are the ones who are going to suffer. And so are those people, the entrepreneurs, the small property owners, the small landlords. They're the ones who are going to be are going to be hurt by this process, not the big, large developers.
Thank you, Jesse. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. We look forward to speaking with you again next week. In the meantime, we wish you and your families good health and safety. God bless you and God bless America.
Let the Record Show is on the air.